Morning YouTube and sewing friends. I've just popped on today to do a quick video for making tailor's tack and how to mark points, dots and other features of your pattern piece onto your fabric without it leaving a mark and without it spoiling anything. So in this case we're going to use something called tailor's tacks, which has been used for years, and we're going to use a needle and thread to do that. However, there's also a quick method, which is using a Frixion pen, a Pilot Frixion pen. I just bought 2 of these from Asda for £5, I think it was, just very recently. And the ink on that is removed by heat, removed by friction, but it's actually the heat from friction that moves them. They aren't fail-proof. There are some fabrics that they don't actually come off, or I have heard stories of the marks coming back in cold weather. So I would exercise caution when you're using that, just to make sure that you are happy that the marks will come out of your fabric and not show up in the future. So with that caveat in place, let's move on. So what we've got here is we've actually got the front piece here of the lunar pyjamas, and we've got a circle here that we need to mark and a circle here. So what I'm going to do first off is remove this pin that's closest to it. I mean, I can reposition that to make sure we keep the mark nice and precise, but this is the one we're going to mark with needle and thread. And I've just got my needle threaded with a contrast thread, so we can see that clearly on the pattern and on the fabric. And what I'm going to do now is just take a stitch. The thread is double, by the way, but no knot in it. All we're going to do is go across the centre of the circle like this, through all the layers, the pattern piece and the 2 fabric pieces, and then at right angles. So if you think about that mark was 6 to 12 o'clock, and this one's going to be 3 to 9 o'clock on a clock face. So at right angles, we're going to come back out through the fabric again, making this look a bit clumsy, but sorry, it's just because it's being filmed. There we go. And then what we want to do is leave a loop, a long tail, and then we're going to cut this thread as well, leaving another long tail. So we've almost got a tassel on our fabric for that. So what we do then is take our scissors or snips and we just cut through the loop, and that then leaves this open tassel. If we remove this pin here that's closest to it, we can then ease the threads through the pattern piece very easily, and they stay in place without being pulled out because they've got a cross on the other side. And then what we do is we just separate the 2 pieces of fabric about halfway, so still leaving our tassels on that end, and then being very careful not to cut through our fabric. We cut just through those threads, and there we go, we've got our marking on there. The other way is using the Frixion pen, and what we do on this one is we put a pin through the centre of the dot or the pattern placement we're trying to mark, and we just draw a mark where that pin hits the fabric. Ease your fabric up the pin so it comes through at the right place on the other side, and then we're just going to mark that again. So again, there we might not mark it very clearly because it's onto black, but that's something to be aware of. It's not fail proof. And then we can then just remove our pin. So then if we remove the pins from the pattern piece, obviously into a pin cushion if you've got pets or young children around, so, or husbands or somebody else, so that you don't tread on the pins on the carpet. Open our pattern pieces out, and we can see we've got our pattern marked very nice and clearly here, and also we've got our marks down here as well for our pattern piece. They're a bit more delicate at the bottom here, but again it just depends on which you work. Both work equally well, and it just depends on your preference. So I hope that's helpful for you. Oh, just one last thing before I go. When you're sewing these down, if you're using the thread markers, then tailor's tacks, then just sew down your seam as you would do with the tack in place. Use it for whatever purpose you need to mark, whether it's a buttonhole or a button placement or just a turning point on the pattern. Then when you've finished, you can then just pull the threads out and they should remove quite easily. Sometimes they get tangled up in your stitching though. If that's the case, use your snips to snip the threads quite close to the fabric, because the twist in your thread will actually almost hold on to those threads sometimes. So if you snip it close to the work without going through your fabric, you can then easily just give them a little tug and they'll just pull away. So I hope that's helpful. That's tailor's tacks for you, and also for marking your your pattern placement, just be careful that pen will remove. These marks here, just iron over them and they'll come away straight away on most fabrics, but as I say, there are some where they don't remove, so just be aware of that. Okay, I hope that's helpful. Thank you. Have a good day everybody, and happy stitching.